is beautiful. Life 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 is beautiful.
All right. Hello. It's Tuesday night. Thank you guys for joining. When you join in, I'd love to hear where you are joining from. I'm here in Texas. You have tuned into the Monica Brandt Show, and I am your host, Monica Brandt. I started this show April 2020 to bring in all the friends that I'd made over the 30 years in the industry, the bodybuilding fitness industry, and get to hear from some of my long-lost friends that I hadn't talked to in a long time, legendary athletes, iconic people that have helped build this industry that we know and love, and also some amazing nutritionists, writers, people that have helped shape the industry, not just on stage, but also in the background with all the awesome articles on nutrition. You know, back in the day, the magazines were the only thing that we had to really learn about nutrition and exercise. And that's what we went to. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have, just tons of things out there. So it's been really fun for me to dive in and talk to and reconnect with all my friends and the legendary athletes and gurus that have helped create this industry. So tonight, bringing you a very special guest. He's a Harvard graduate whose 30 plus years have landed him in a consulting job. He's an author. He is a scientist, and he's also wears multiple hats. So it seems like every time I'm hearing something, he's got something new going on and something he's creating or inventing or being a part of. So please help me welcome tonight my very special guest, Will Brink from the Brink Zone.
Hey, Monica.
Oh, no. Hi.
How goes?
Very good. We've got a little static on that microphone. Again.
I can hear you. Any better?
You sound like you're in another space. We just had you perfectly on, too.
2 seconds. I didn't change anything. I didn't touch anything. You sound fine on my end.
Oh, no. It sounds like you're in outer space. Do you know sign language?
Terrible.
No.
The only signs I know
Oh.
are signs going on. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Well, we are live, but that is okay. Let's see. Maybe unplugging the mic and plug it back in again. Let's try that.
Try that. See what that does for us.
Yeah, well, otherwise maybe we have to bring you back in again. Because we got way too many good things to talk about. Can't have this kind of conversation. It sounds like you're on Mars or Pluto or something. Oh, well, that's the great thing of going live, right? Is that you never know what's going to happen with this crazy internet or all of the tools that we use. So that's okay. We'll bring Will back in, and thanks to my show producer, Claudia, I know she'll be working on getting him back in and making it right. Hopefully on Will's end, we can get him. Earlier, we had him on, and he said he had a bunch of things open, so he closed out a bunch of stuff, and it came back fine. So again, like I said, Will wears multiple hats, and he is got a lot of things going on. So you never know, in the 30 seconds, maybe he opened up some things to work on a patent or something like that. I don't know. But I hope everyone hangs tight, and we'll be right in with the show. So a little bit about what's going on in my world, since I'm here getting to just share anyways. I'm really excited. So earlier I had a fun little talk with Wendy Fortino, and Wendy and I are going to be bringing in some shorter, fun, just very real and raw conversations that we'll be doing. Maybe hopefully once a week. Oh, Will's back. Let's see. Oh, no, now I can't hear Will. Now I can't hear you at all. Dang it. Internet, or not the internet, technology. Let's see. Well, we've got Will back on, but now we can't hear him. So we're going to just see what.
That should work.
Yay!
All right. Any better?
Yes, it's perfect.
Really? That actually worked?
What'd you do?
I I did exactly what you told me to do. I disconnected everything and just rebooted. If that worked, fabulous. Okay.
Well, it's one of those things like, when the lights don't work, have you changed the light bulb? Or, oh, the remote's not working, did you change the batteries? And I think with computers, I know we get so used to just having them on all the time. And sometimes just that simple, turn it off and turn it on. And our phone too, like when's the last time you turn maybe you're somebody, you turn your phone off every night?
No, I'm the kind of person who turns his phone off when everything in the screen locks up. And anytime when you have a problem with your computer, no matter what it is, and you talk to somebody who fixes computers, restart your computer.
Right?
Yeah, but it's doing just restart your computer, and that's all they'll keep saying to you. And they're right. 95% of the time, that fixes everything. But
I know. Well, it's kind of like that in life, I think, too. And you probably can understand this. Like sometimes when things are just going so crazy, maybe there's a day that everything seems to be going crazy. I think, have I stopped and taken a moment to just breathe and enjoy the moment that I'm in, take a big breath, and then come back to it. And then it's kind of like resetting and charging, even if it's a brief moment, that 10 seconds, right? Because when you used to have to unplug something, you'd have to wait 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3. So it's kind of like that for ourselves too, I think.
if you can do it, I mean, yogis, meditation specialists, whatever will all tell you the same thing. If you can put aside, a couple minutes a day or whatever it is you can afford, 5, 10, 20. But, I do a little meditation every day, mindful meditation it's called, sort of a specific type. And that sometimes can just reset everything.
Mm-hmm. And,
bring you back into the now, as they say, bring the perspective.
Exactly. And I'm a prayerful person, so I stop and read scripture and say my prayers and talk to God. So, and sometimes just driving, that helps too, right? Just kind of getting away from the distractions. Oh no, you know what? We've got this static again.
So, I mean, on my side, it sounds okay. So what does it sound like to you? I'm not hearing, to me, I don't hear a thing. So you sound okay with me.
Huh.
Are your comments, sometimes what I do, I ask everybody else out there in the audience how does it sound to them, and see how they got their comments on. That's what I usually do. So how do I sound to people? And they go,
Claudia just messaged. She said there's really bad static on her. So let's see. I'm going to unplug mine.
The other thing I could do is come back in on Chrome. I'm actually not on Chrome. It sort of works best sometimes on StreamYard.
Okay.
I'm actually not using Chrome. I usually use just Chrome for it. I can try that too.
Huh. Is it possible to turn Will's mic off?
I can turn it off on mine.
Yeah, let's try it. That's what Claudia's asking.
Hold on. Let me turn it off.
Well, the static is not there anymore, but I hear echo. Echo. Okay. Now I don't hear you at all. You hear me? I don't hear you at all. I can't. Yeah, now I can't hear you at all.
I turned my mic on, turning it back on, but I don't think it's doing. I don't think it's doing any good. All settings are good. I can try to use Chrome. I can go back on Chrome.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you'll do one more time, go out and come back on Chrome. Thank you, Will.
Send me. I or maybe I can paste it from the email.
Okay.
All right, so cash me out. I'm gonna go on Chrome and come back strictly on.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. So there we have it. We're going to work on this again and come back because I have some really great things to talk to Will about. He's got some cool things he's got going on. And Will's been in the industry for a very long time. He's a wealth of knowledge, and it'd be fun to just kind of talk to him without the static, right? So I know I was kind of saying earlier that Wendy and I are going to be coming on and doing some shows together, short and sweet, just kind of real and raw. And the other thing is I'm going to be working with Wendy and her husband on a little bit of a health program for myself. I have kind of been off the radar for the last 2 years with my own training and nutrition, although I've been doing that for everyone else. I just I'd like to have someone that I'm accountable to. And so I'm going to be working with Wendy and,
I'm back.
You're back, and I can hear you perfectly.
Really?
I can.
That's good?
Yes.
Okay. Well, lesson learned then. So Chrome from now on. I actually did read that StreamYard works best with Chrome, and you actually look better on my side too than
I'll take it.
Yeah. So, okay. Your camera actually looks a lot better. So great. All right. Lesson learned.
Yay.
I just linked through Firefox, and obviously next time we will stick to, I will definitely stick to Chrome. All right. Very good.
Awesome. Well, okay. Well, welcome again, Will. And
thank you.
No worries about all of that. It's live, and sometimes we have to work through those things, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what gives the spontaneity of actual live stream stuff,
Exactly. Yeah. I know people like the reality stuff nowadays too, right? It's been,
I do.
Been that way. Yeah. So, okay. So I want to talk to you a little bit about 2020 and 2021. How have these 2 years or year and a half been for you? What challenges, what successes, like what does this kind of look like for you in your world?
Well, I think like a lot of people, of course, COVID, 2020 has been kind of this weird black hole that just kind of it's like a whole year just disappeared, So for me, it was scrambling around. I was also doing a lot of research on COVID when this started, and worked with some medical doctors and stuff I know developing protocols. So I was, deep in the research on COVID really early on, reading the journals and trying to really understand it, like a lot of people were. And I felt that there were some real missing opportunities in treatment and understanding some specific areas that weren't really being addressed. So I wrote a couple of good articles, made some videos, did try just do my best to get the information out that I thought would be helpful to people with COVID and treating it and understanding where it's coming from. So I was pretty deep dive into that. And like a lot of people not knowing exactly what was going on, I was trying to, get through it. And I maybe I had a little bit of an advantage, as some people that I was, really reading the journals and I was reading the medical literature when it's coming out. And, but I was just really deep into it, trying to get a handle on it so that I could, obviously for myself, but also for people out there that I work with. I do work with some clinicians and just general health people that have their own people they're trying to answer questions to. They were getting bombarded, of course, with what's going on and what can we do and what's the truth. And as there was the politicization of it and the crossover of what was science and what was not was very. If it was hard for me to figure out, I feel bad for how much must have been for the rest of the world, because I was having the same challenge trying to figure out what is reality here, what is fantasy, what is politics, what is, the rest of it, without even going down that rabbit hole. So that was a large part of it for me. And, like everybody else, just once for myself and just everybody else sort of started to get a handle on it and a sense of where we were going with it, I was able to sort of get back to, opening my life back up to some sort of normal, focusing on other things like, business and writing and, actually working on some fiction stuff and other things that were not 24/7 COVID,
Right.
I would say. So, yeah, it was I think for a lot of people, we're all looking back at this year and wondering where it happened to it, where did it go, what were we doing,
Right.
I'm still figuring it out.
With all the studies you did, what would you say, and I'm sure it's going to be maybe some of the stuff that I've heard, but what would you say the top maybe 3 products are to keep the immune system up that's you would say people need to focus on having, besides a healthy lifestyle and the eating and
the obvious stuff. Yeah. Well, I would say specific to COVID, because there's a lot of stuff, but let's say because of the way COVID works, and I want to get too detailed, but specific to COVID, N-acetylcysteine, anything that keeps your glutathione levels up. Whey is actually probably superior to N-acetylcysteine for raising glutathione, and I do have a whole video on that explaining why and how that is.
Okay.
You may have been aware that the FDA has decided to go after N-acetylcysteine,
Yeah.
claiming that they have pulled a 1965, I kid you not, a 1965 drug application to claim that, as far as they're concerned, NAC is a drug. You know, never bothered them before, but so they have, you know, it came on the radar of a lot of people that that NAC should be highly effective, at least for reducing the severity. There's a number of very useful papers that suggest strongly that the major complications from COVID are due from glutathione deficiency, from depletion of glutathione stores.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an obvious one. Like I say, whey is actually probably more efficient at raising glutathione, and so my answer to most people is to do both.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take a serving of whey, a good quality whey, and there are some downsides to excessive amounts of N-acetylcysteine, which, because you're sort of driving you can only drive the pathway so far to take the precursor of NAC and turn to glutathione. And like I say, I'm happy to, if anybody pings me or whatever, I'll send them to that video. Explains the whole thing.
Okay.
So that's a big one. I guess, and then the other two obvious ones are zinc. That's a big one. People are zinc deficient. And one that people may not actually think about is magnesium. Magnesium is it's, you know, actually, almost be a fight between magnesium and D, right? So everybody knows D is an important one. That's a biggie too. I don't know if I could narrow it to if I could narrow it
you
to.
need like 5.
Right, 5. I think I can do 5. Yeah, so I can do 5. I can live with 5. 3, I just don't think we can make it. But so if you give me 5, yeah. So D, and so magnesium, D cannot do all the things that D does for you. Cannot do it without magnesium. Magnesium is essential for the enzymes that D has to do its thing, and then it goes through successive steps to do other stuff. And 80% of the population is deficient in magnesium. 80%. I mean, that's a hell of a number.
Right.
People are aware of people being D deficient, but actually way more people are magnesium deficient than they are D deficient. So that's a real big one, to make vitamin D actually do all the cool things that we want it to do to fight COVID. And the reason that D is important is that it controls a lot of pathways leading to like hyperimmunity. This is where people get themselves into trouble from it just being like a nasty cold or a mild flu to being something serious. Is what happens is you experience something called a cytokine storm, which is basically just another term for hyperimmune response. And vitamin D is essential. The byproducts of vitamin D, what we would call downstream metabolites, are essential to controlling that, to keeping that in check.
Okay.
So yeah, if you gave me 5, we could do. But I think the one that most people will know, you know, they'll be like, oh, of course, C, you know, zinc, of course, sure. NAC. I think the one they probably is not on their radar would be magnesium in there. And probably whey. Even good old creatine. You know, creatine, there's a number of studies that show creatine are very supportive to the immune system, T-cell immunity. And there's one that I didn't publish, I posted, that suggests it may be actually really useful for long haulers. You know, those are people that have had COVID, but they're having extended issues with COVID. They call them long haulers. There's not a lot of studies looking at it directly, but there is a good paper out there, and I think some studies that will probably look into it. And I think creatine's easily still the most underrated supplement of them all, which it seems hard to imagine, but it is.
So I'm doing well. I know you and I kind of chatted on this a little bit, but NAC I've been using. Of course, we talked about how, you know, you just mentioned the FDA, and I know I got that message from Amazon. We're not going to be selling this anymore.
And that freaked a lot of people out too. I got a lot of emails on that one.
We've been using it for a long time. It's supposed to be great if you drink alcohol too, right? Like, right? Because alcohol diminishes glutathione storages.
No, if I'm drinking, I take extra NAC. I do. I'm going out on Friday night. Yep.
I mean, it's crazy. So the cryotherapy place that I go to down here has glutathione, and once in a while they're out because everyone's in there getting injections.
Right.
So I know that they're you know, given that, you know, I have to stand up for 1 second and let my dog out because my door's closed in my office and she's going to sit here cry. Hang on a second.
Let her in.
Can y'all feed Cams? She's coming. I'm sorry. My little 15-year-old dachshund was in her bed and she'd realized it's time to eat dinner and stood at my door crying. So I was like, I have to open the door.
I put my my retired greyhounds in their crate.
Aw. Well, normally she would have eaten dinner and I don't know. She was in here sleeping, so I just let her sleep. But anyway, so the whey protein, do you have a whey that you recommend or that you use? Or do you, I mean, you don't.
I use generally Life Extension, Life Extension Foundation.
I'm familiar with Life Extension.
I actually designed that one myself, so I know exactly what's in it.
Wow. Okay.
So I've done consulting work for Life Extension since the 90s. I'm good friends with the owner.
Okay, that's great. I used to get their brochures in the mail.
Yeah, they're good. They're a real solid company. I mean, Life Extension is, and I was actually a member of the Life Extension even before I ever did any work for them. So, they're always in my, my handful of companies of that I use and recommend.
Okay.
Life Extension is pretty much my default company, and the company that they use as their source of whey is an extremely good company, which I, handpicked myself for them because I designed it. So yeah, Life Extension is good. I like them. I've developed about half a dozen products for them over the years.
Okay.
Another one.
You had mentioned that we could get NAC there, right? Because when I was saying, okay, so I
should be able to get NAC from them.
I put my notes down. I put that on my notes so I can, because I have some still, but.
Another one, NutriBio, excellent company owned by Mark Glazier, is a good guy, good choice. He actually is producing Alpha Joe. And he's another one that I went, I don't know, a couple of years ago, Facebook or whatever, I was talking about companies that I trusted because I trusted their quality control and their sourcing and all that. And he said, if you want to come up and see our facility, I'll fly you up here. You can see it for yourself because that's pretty much what it takes to get a recommendation from me. So, and I did. And I flew up to Jersey and saw his place. And I was so impressed with it that I said, look, I'm hoping to do a formula myself in the future. And I'd really, like you to do it. And he's not a contract manufacturer, so he doesn't make anybody else's products but his own. Mm-hmm. And so after lots of arm twisting and cajoling, I got him to do it. But yeah, that's another one. They've got plenty of NAC. He was smart enough to stockpile it, and he's a primary. He makes his own products. I mean, he's a primary manufacturer of his own products, which is also quite rare in the business. Most supplement companies don't make their own products. They just do contract pay for contract. It's just not necessarily negative. I mean, it's not not like automatically a bad thing. It's just very few companies in the industry actually are their own, manufacturer of their own product, which means they've got a lot more control, which I like. But it's not necessarily, it's not like I wouldn't buy. There's about a handful. Like I say, Jarrow Formulas is a good company too. Jarrow, I've known Jarrow for quite a while.
It seems like the NAC I'm getting is Jarrow.
It might be. They're Jarrow. Yeah. They just got sold, so I hope that it continues to be the quality company it always was. But Jarrow's a really interesting company with a really interesting story and background. And I think a lot of those companies, they still, no matter how big the company gets, it still has the culture comes from the top down. No matter who started that company, that culture of caring about, what is the mission? Is the mission to sell the best product you can and pay your bills? Or is it just about selling the cheapest garbage you can find? Or so, Jarrow is one of those companies, and the Life Extension one of those companies, and Mark is the same way. They live the mission. They work. It gives way more hours. I mean, people ask me for many, many years. Will, why didn't you ever start a supplement company? I said because I don't want to work 100 hours a week. I really don't. I really value my time.
It's cool if you can be a consultant and you can help add to a company that you really trust and love and be able to promote back to that. That's pretty cool. So
that's for me. That's kind of was worked out the way I wanted it to. But I also get to work when I want to and go hike when I want to. I've just known so many overworked, burnt out supplement company owners. I didn't want to. It's just not for me.
Good. You know what you want. Okay. So you said whey protein, NAC. I know the question that a lot of people end up, asking about and thinking, oh, I'm going to walk outside for 5 minutes and get my vitamin D. So maybe touch on that briefly. And this wasn't part of my notes that I had written down, but I feel like it's kind of a great topic to have a little time invested in. And since you are an expert at all of these things, maybe can you speak on that? Because I've, of course, heard my own thing, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
It's really difficult to get adequate vitamin D through the sun. And of course, there's a lot of variables like what time of year, what time of day, skin tone, whether, there's so many variables to it that when people just sort of automatically say, just go walk out in the sun for 10 minutes. It doesn't work that way. There are actually some pretty interesting studies where there was one study where they actually got surfers in California. Now, these are, guys who are out on the water all day long with nothing but board shorts on, and they were still deficient in vitamin D. So there's a number of studies out there that find that. Remember, vitamin D. We as a civilization or whatever, we were out working in the fields all day long for up until just not that long ago. Whatever 1,000 feet, 10,000, 5,000 years ago, whatever. But up until a pretty short time ago, we as humans were pretty much out all day long.
Right.
And then, of course, skin color. Lighter people like you and I are going to make D3. For darker skinned people, that's one of the theories of why.
You got muted, Will. I don't know, something, you hit the mute button there somehow.
That back?
Yeah. Yes.
So
back.
One of the theories, and it's probably a pretty accurate one, is you notice that people got lighter and lighter as they go north and darker as they're towards the equator. Probably we lost that melanin because the body was trying to make more vitamin D. But on the flip side, if you're a dark-skinned person and you're living anywhere but the middle of Africa, you're just not going to get enough vitamin D. You're going to be vitamin D deficient almost consistently. Which again, studies show that African Americans and such are extremely vitamin D deficient. And you also find, which is interesting, is they also take a lot more vitamin D, even orally, to get their numbers up.
Wow. And
that's actually a whole other area of interest that I've known people, some African American people that I worked with that had to take 50,000 I units a day.
Wow.
That's a mega dose to get them.
Well, I think 5,000 is your kind of standard.
5,000
right?
worked for me. Interesting, Asians I find are somewhere in the middle. They actually need about my doctor himself. He's an Asian guy, and he was a little skeptical. He's not like super conservative, but he was a little bit like, I think I get enough sun. We had that same conversation. I ride my bike every day, and I said, look, doc, get it tested. I said, I tell you, this is what I like to do with them. I said, I tell you what, I will pay for the test. If it comes back and you have adequate vitamin D, I will pay myself. Is that a bet? Yeah, he said, okay, sure, bet. No problem. I have never paid yet. Not one. See, I'm not a gambler. If I actually make a bet with somebody, you're going to lose because I'm not a gambler. I'm not a good gambler. So I like to make bets. Anybody offers, if I ever offer you or anybody else a bet, don't take it.
Don't take it. I won't.
So he said, you're right, Will. I am deficient. And so he actually ended up needing 20,000 IUs a day for months just to get him into the middle number.
Wow. Now, okay. So that leads me to a question. Is there, I know, well, there used to be, and I haven't seen it in a long time, but there used to be a little testing location down here, and you could go and they had all kinds of testing that you could do their blood work or whatever, insulin resistance and yada yada yada. So can you get those kind of tests online now? Do you know?
Yeah, you should be able to. Yeah, okay. It's called the basic test is 25 OHD.
Is it a saliva test?
No, it's going to be blood only. I'm not aware of any saliva D tests so far. The gold
blood,
standard,
meaning like, can you just prick your finger, or do you have to like draw blood?
I've only seen, and that's not a bad idea. I've only seen one. You got to go to the lab and get it drawn.
Okay.
Now that would actually be a pretty good idea if you know any chemists or lab people. An in-home vitamin D test would be.
That's something you can invent, Will.
A good idea, actually.
I mean, you just have the little glucose thing at home and prick your finger.
Monica, that'd be a moneymaker. That's a good idea. There you go. But no, basically I tell people next time you get blood work, like everybody should do at least once a year, just tell a doc you want to have your vitamin D status checked, and they will check your 25 OHD levels. And there's some debate as to how accurate that is, that there's some people think there's other things that should be tested and so forth. But the first conversion from D3 becomes the more active metabolite is over to 25 OHD. So it says that it shows that you're heading in the direction of going downstream and making more active stuff, basically what it is.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's kind of what I've heard. Why am I hearing myself echo now? What is going on tonight? This crazy thing.
Sound right on me?
Okay. Now I'm not hearing it. It went away. Okay. Okay. Anyways. Okay. So whey, NAC, vitamin D, and not just from the sun, but the sun does help, especially, I find there's so many people that are just inside more now too. Like even kids are just not outside much, and they're not getting that activity and the sun, of course. And then that, it affects the mood, right? I mean, vitamin D has some effect on the mood. Well, and sunlight also affects our moods because it helps release these hormones in our body that are meant to be released. So, and then the other things you said were zinc and
C.
Okay.
You can always have some C. You couldn't
That's
really
awesome.
go wrong. If the government had a truck on every corner giving those supplements out for free. If they had done that in a nice little pack, it would. I can't even imagine the difference in the number of severe cases and hospitalizations and such that we would have seen go down. Some countries were actually giving out free vitamin D.
Wow.
I think a couple of the Nordic countries do give out free vitamin D, and I think the UK was doing that with at least the people they identified as like particularly high risk, like people like older people never left their house, but at least they thought of it.
Well, the government here gave out. I don't know. I saw them in some of the stores. They gave out the little emergency pack with a face covering and some nasty chemical wipes and
but no vitamins.
No.
And I say, considering how cheap those vitamins would be, imagine if you pulled up a truck, in every park and just. Because at the worst case, you've wasted a little money. You're not going to hurt anybody with it. And considering, value for money spent, it's kind of ridiculous. But we all know the reason that's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, have you ever seen Weekend with JP, the comedian? His. All right, I've got to send you some of his stuff. He's a comedian out in LA, I guess, and he does. I mean, he's very politically right side, but he's built like he's got a good physique. You can tell he takes care of himself. He did a very funny skit. He does a lot of skits. I'll have to send you you'll love his stuff. He's very, very funny, but very smart in how he does it, his comedy. But he did one like when 2020 was kind of rolling through with the lockdown, and he's just talking about staying inside and how healthy it is, and why he is in such great shape for 2020 because he stayed inside. It's hand washing and all this. I'll have to send you. You'll get a kick out of him. So okay, so I want to kind of dive in a little bit back into kind of history of you. Will, like how did you grow up? Where did you grow up? All I know is that you're this super author, and you've done all these great things and have patents. But how did you get from childhood to where you are?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in the 70s and 80s.
Wow. Okay.
And when Brooklyn was a really interesting place. New York City in the 70s and 80s was, really at its peak, I would say, on both what makes New York and negatives. I mean, the crime and the craziness, and it was quite a place to grow up. And my mother was definitely free range parenting would define my mother, but those are the days again. Those different. This is a whole different time, So I had a lot of time to myself to do my own thing. I think that gave me a lot of creativity, the ability to sort of always be thinking about stuff, and spent a lot of time. I think when we were kids, I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, but when we were kids, you had to use your imagination. I didn't have. You had to go if you wanted a toy gun, I mean, you had to get a branch and and like make it look like a toy gun or whatever. If I wanted a skateboard, I had to buy it. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money. So, I mean, I had to use my imagination all day to entertain myself. And, basically my mother would basically say, get out and, be back by dinner. And that was about it, And I find that, that it created benefits to me. I think that with that, growing up with the imagination, always having to use my imagination. School-wise, I was terrible in school. I mean, awful. My mother always got that speech that I was a smart kid, but I wasn't applying myself, and
Oh no.
we got that speech every time. And so I was not, I was really not a school person. I did really bad. I didn't do well until I got to like college.
Oh wow.
College, I liked college. College was, up to you, but I disliked school. I was always getting in trouble.
How did you go through all that and end up at Harvard?
Well, a lot of work. I was a transfer student.
Okay.
When I went to my first college, and I was a transfer student. I also did have a lot of people in my family that went there. So, I mean, it's not supposed to help, but I can't imagine it didn't help a little.
Right.
They'll say it doesn't help, but I suspect, I think it helped. But regardless, I was a transfer student and came in with the grades enough to get me in there. What did it. But I was not junior high school, and maybe even my first year of college. And then as I just, woke up and I enjoyed college. Like I say, college, I enjoyed learning. But everything else just to me was just a drag. I couldn't stand high school.
Oh, wow. Are you a learner at heart?
Yeah, I am, but I just have never been good with the formal structured learning.
Okay.
Again, one of my mistakes is, I've been to 5 different colleges. I've got enough credits. I probably got enough credits for 2 master's degrees at this point. And it took me, 13 years to finish my undergrad.
Oh,
because
wow.
I kept bouncing around and taking different classes and changing majors. I always had a book as a kid. I always had a book in my hand, and I wasn't reading, kids' books. I was reading autobiographies and a lot of history and science books. And so I love to learn, but my problem was, that my mind would just keep bouncing around to stuff. And it was really hard for me to just focus and everything. When I do any mentoring or talking to kids or people that are, say, well, what's this like what's your advice? And it's just put your head down and just get it done. Just get done, get that degree out of the way. Then you can focus on other stuff. Even if, you want to go back to school and get some other degree or something, but don't drag it out for like I did for forever and ever, because now I learned a lot. I got a lot of useless stuff in my head. I can tell you that, but I also learned really young, which is good because some people never, learn. I did learn young that if I was going to do okay in the world and make any money, that I had better find a way to make money, work for myself. Again, I knew early on that I was not ever going to be a corporate guy. I was never going to do well in a structured corporate setting. And I think a lot, again, how I grew up and where I grew up and when I grew up and just my personality. But I got fired from, I remember clear as day, I got fired from Cumberland Farms at 14. Guy calls me in and says, Will, we're going to let you go. And I said, well, what's wrong? He goes, well, you're not a team player, Will. And I said, I stock milk. What do you mean? He goes, well, Will, you come in and you just go into the freezer and you stock the milk and you don't say hello to anybody. And, you're just not a team player. And I even that stuck in my mind. I knew even early on that, okay, I better find, if I'm going to do something in this world and, make whatever it is I want to do, I better find a way to be my own boss and work for myself. And that was, hey, he did me a favor. I mean, what if I'd found that out at 35 or something, where I had been working some crappy, if I ever saw the guy, I'd probably shake his hand and say, you taught me a good lesson young enough. But so those were informative times where I learned some good lessons. But I think especially a lot of kids, like I say, I think you hear a lot from them all the time is, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. Right. And then they end up doing nothing. Right. And when back in the day, our parents' age or whatever, you didn't really have a choice. You grew up in a culture, you were a coal miner or you were a lawyer, whatever, you did the family thing. And it wasn't like you sat around thinking about what else you could do. Mm-hmm. Whereas, you and I grew up in the generation where there were choices and sometimes having all those supposed choices isn't that easy, But again, the best thing you can do for yourself, if you're a younger person, is you don't always know what you want to do, but I can say that you can learn by process of elimination of what you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I knew one thing I also found out was that, I did all these different jobs, bartender and house painter and electrician's helper and cab driver. I mean, I tried all kinds of stuff, and I knew for sure all the stuff I did not want to do by elimination. And one thing I knew for sure was I wasn't going to be, I didn't want to hammer nails or paint houses or, turn wrenches for the rest of my life. So, okay, that narrowed it down to, okay, I better find something that is, I can use my brain, that's going to require, thought. And I thought I was going to go to medical school. I mean, originally,
really?
Yeah, that's what I was going to school for when I got into the business. I had graduated in Keene State College and had a private training business and was, still trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself. I decided that's when I went back to school to get the sciences and get all the pre-medical sciences. And my basic focus was to finish all the pre-medical sciences and go to medical school. And somebody said, Will, you know a lot of stuff. You ought to expand from this business. You're just training people. Why don't you should write for a magazine? So I wrote out an article. I sent it to Muscle Mag International, and I didn't hear anything from them. And I was like, okay, well, not going to happen. And I was in the bookstore, and because every month I go to, I read every magazine every month. And I was in the bookstore, and I'm looking through Muscle Mag, and I was like, boy, this looks familiar. I was like, that's my article.
Oh.
And I'm jumping up and down in the store like, that's my article. And people are looking at me like I'm crazy. And so I got home and I called Muscle Mag and I said, whatever happened? I never heard from you. What happened? There's like, we lost your address. Well, remember Bob Kenny? He was a very casual guy, And I got him on the phone too. He's like, oh, hey, Will Brink. Yeah. We lost your address. We figured you'd pop up. Now imagine if I had not seen this one article my whole life.
Right.
And Bob was like, hey man, no problem. We'll get you a check. And, so I'm not a real optimistic person. I'm really more of a pragmatist. And so I thought, okay, maybe this is a fluke. Maybe it's a one-time deal. So I'm going to write 2 more. And if I can get 3 articles in Muscle Mag International, then it's meant to be. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. So that worked out. I got 2 more in, and started writing articles. I was doing my night school, getting all the science, taking all the pre-meds and taking all this horrible, difficult stuff, and started to get contacted from companies and some pro athletes and stuff to work with them. And so then that's when I started to get consulting work and working with some pro bodybuilders and some track athletes and a couple of police officers, SWAT teams. And so at that point, my doctor buddies actually talked me out of going to medical school. I was telling them what I was doing, and they said, Will, if you've already got something going and you're enjoying it and you're making money, and you don't have to go through, come out with a $500,000 loan, go do that. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of was like, I finished off all the pre-medical sciences and, just kept on going with doing what I was doing,
What year was that first article in Muscle Mag?
I want to say 92, 91, 92.
And how old were you?
Well, I would have been, mid-20s. Yeah, I think so. In my mid-20s, in that ballpark.
How old are you now?
56.
Okay, because I'm 50.
Mm-hmm.
So then, because I know you and I had some communications throughout the years of all the, when I kind of got involved.
The shows and say hello and, just changing topics just for a second. Yeah. But what I like about your office is that I'm in almost all those magazines. I love. I was looking. So when you were sitting there, like the one over your shoulder, I guess that one. I'm in that one. The Oxygen. I was in the very first Oxygen magazine.
Oh yeah.
So it's fun just seeing all those. But yeah, no, I used to see you at the shows and come say hello. And
I remember seeing you. Yeah, talking, visiting.
I always came up and say hello. And you and a few others. The reason you always stood out and a few others stood out is that what was very obvious about you, even like right from the beginning, was you were a business. You were there to work. I mean, you were like very professional and all that. but you were there obviously as a business, as a job, you know, do your thing. You weren't there to just party and, you know, be a nut. And that was something that always stood out. There was only a handful at best, as you know.
Yeah.
We were there to party and, you know, schmooze and other things I won't even say. But
Right.
and you and a couple other like Jamie Eason's, you always very professional. You know, you could always tell Jamie was, like I say, really there just to, you know, do her thing, work the booth, say hello, take pictures, and, you know, go home.
Yeah, you're right. Well, you're right. And I did 20 years at the Arnold and 20 years at the Olympia, and competed in however many of each of them. And I'm always like, where's that retirement? You know, like after 20 years, you know, you're supposed to be able to retire after 20 years, kind of the old school mentality. Not that I retired, but, you know, just having gone through 20 years of working in those environments, you always, it just makes me laugh. I'm like, that would have been fun to get something about that. But yeah,
well, I hope, I mean, I'm sure you get a lot of girls asking you for advice, and hopefully you talked them out of it more than you talked them into it. That if you're doing it for the money, if you're doing it for the money, you know, that don't do it for the money. If you're doing it because you love the sport and you have something else to fall back on. I mean, I talked more guys out of, you know, pro bodybuilding than I ever talked into it. There's only a few that I've ever encouraged to go forward. You know,
well, I think for the women, there's, you know, I just want to, you know, the men and women is definitely not equal in many ways, but at least for the women, there was a lot more opportunities with some of the modeling. And, you know, now there's so many different, you know, over the time, there was so many different categories to compete in and all the different levels. And, you know, there's a lot of girls that I think that I worked with over the years, not that I think, but that I worked with over the years that were just those, they just were getting in, they just needed a goal. You know, they just needed something to have as a goal for themselves. And so I enjoyed working with those girls that maybe they did a couple shows and they're like, oh, that was fun, but I'm done. You know, and then there were some that, you know, went on, but, you know, I enjoyed those kind of first timers where I could really handhold and share with them how to be professional, how to carry themselves well, how to present themselves well, how to think about the shows in a positive way. Like, you know, why are you doing this? And no, you're not getting paid to do this. And you need to be, you know, a good example for those people around you, because, you know, sometimes, you know, you get lost in the, oh, it's so hard to diet and so tired of training. I'm like, well, no one's paying you to do that, right? This is a hobby. This is a thing you get to do. Like, there's countries where women can't do that. So, you know, you get to do that here. It's not a have to. So anyways, so
perspective is everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, Will, what is a typical day for you now? You're an entrepreneur, obviously a consultant. You were telling me you've got some patents. You're still writing. Like, you know, before we dive into some more of your, you know, products and things that you've got that we want to talk about later, but what does a typical day look like for you now? Like, you know, are you up all night working and sleep during the day? Like,
no, I'm not one of those guys. I have some friends that are, but no, I'm more of a, again, I guess it's like everything. It's unfortunately, it's sort of like pre-COVID and post-COVID. You know, that seems to be now. My schedule now is actually starting to get sort of back to what a typical, you know, pre-COVID thing was. But I mean, my day is pretty straightforward. Is to, you know, get up and make myself some. I'm going to spam everybody, but I do get up and make myself a big mug of Alpha Joe.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I have to. I really do. So that's a true, and which I used to make by the separate ingredients, and I would get up, which I used to call bomb proof, and I would cut all the ingredients and do it, and make some oatmeal and start checking my emails like everybody else. I'm sitting in front of this big screen, and what's behind me is my messy office / COVID gym. Look, hold on.
I saw that. I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah.
No, see, I was pretty well prepared. I had my own. I really do have.
So you can be working at the office, turn around and do some pull downs.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a decent little home gym I put together for all this craziness. Then see what I have to do social media wise, or whether I have to. What I basically do is start getting on Facebook and stuff as an excuse that I need to do my social media, which is I'm really just, you know, wasting time on social media. and Facebook, checking things out. But right now, it's usually support stuff for either Alpha Joe or working on. I've got a couple open stories on some fiction stuff. I'm also traveling next week to Panama. I have a place in Panama.
Nice.
And I have some business. I have I'm invested in some supplement stores in Panama.
Okay.
So I have some business there. And actually, speaking of life extension, they are life extension stores, which we brought. They were there already. And then we basically brought life extension into Panama and made them official life extension stores. Oh. So the guy down there, he owns them and I'm sort of invested in them. So,
okay.
And trying to get to the gym and get some workout.
Where do you train and what time of day?
Well, let's go pre-COVID and post. So during COVID here in my little house, basically that was it.
Right.
The one thing, if you've worked out long enough and you know this, one of the biggest uses from people is, I don't have access to a gym. I can't work out. I'll work out. I'll find a way to work out in a cubicle. I will figure it out, whatever I've got to do, I will figure it out. Now it's nice to have equipment, right? We all, we want it, but you give me a gallon of milk, I'll figure out a workout with this thing if I have to, I'll be doing swings and, pistol squats and push-ups so I have actually a decent little home gym. I have a TRX. I've got some, KBs, but it's not like going to the gym, but those excuses that people will give you that, if they don't have like a huge gym full of stuff, so once they start opening the gyms back up, I've been going, I go to LA Fitness down the road, which it's okay. It's close by. It doesn't have, you're in Texas, right?
Right.
The days of like those really high quality hardcore gyms just are gone.
They're few and far between.
Yeah. I know there's a few left in Florida, but I'd have to drive, an hour or whatever to find one. But like Golds, they're all gone. There's no Golds. I'm not aware of any Golds left in Florida, or Worlds, or any of those, Powerhouse, or any of those. So I go to good old LA Fitness with the rest of the with the millennials, and
everyone's on their phones.
Yeah.
Yeah. What time of day do you like to exercise?
Mid-afternoon, between 3 and 4. I have always been. I'm not a morning person. I'm not an afternoon person, and I'm not a night person. I'm like this. I got all my energy right around the beautiful 3 to 5.
Cool.
Like that's it.
There's usually a pretty decent time at the gyms because it's the morning crowd's gone. Yeah. The mid crowd's kind of like the older people, and then you're getting there before the night. Rowdy.
You have enough meals, you have energy, but it's not later where it's getting dark. I like to take, if I can take a nap around 3 o'clock to 3:30 and then hit the gym 4, I'm happy. I have to say, my focus on the gym is definitely more about maintaining health, wellness, mobility, strength, and all that, and then versus like, trying to hit any sort of personal bests or anything like that. I've got torn rotator cuff and a number of things where I'm more or less just sort of looking for that balance, that balance to healthy lifestyle kind of thing, which was a real challenge. COVID really made it hard. I think it really tested your resolve.
Right. Well, in March of 2020, I started doing body weight only Zoom classes. And I've had a pretty good little following for that. And it's been awesome. So I'm doing them twice a week, literally only body weight. So Saturdays are a little more intense. And then Wednesday nights are a little bit more laid back but all body weight, joint mobility, posture correction things, hip opening, glute activation. And on Wednesday nights, I do a roll. I'll add in a roller because people that are coming on all have rollers. So I'm like, let's do some roller stuff and stretching. Yeah. And so it's been, a dynamic warm up, but I just do them on Zoom. So if people can't make it, I send them the recording and I just charge a very minimal $20 a session fee. And, it's been really good for me too, because it complements any other workout.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying to explore a lot of that. Yeah, exactly. A lot of that.
Well, you need to join one of mine sometime. I'll have to let you come on and try one.
I've been doing more swimming just because, again, I find it so good for rehab and mobility. But yeah, I've been trying to do exactly stuff like learning to like open up my hips, But yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, body weight stuff is really underappreciated, undervalued, and
Well,
it's as hard as you want to make it. I mean,
right. Oh, it
yeah.
is. And then when you're, kind of suffering through it, you're like, why am I so heavy?
Yeah. Yeah, again, I think anybody that wants to claim that they need machines or whatever for tough work, I have no idea
Oh,
how difficult body weight stuff can be.
yeah.
And
So tomorrow night, Wednesday night at 8:30 Central, it'd be 9:30 your time. I'll be hosting one. So if you want to join me, just let me know and I'll send you the link.
yeah, very much space, right? I need very
You
little
don't
space.
need very little space,
Yeah.
all
Okay.
in one little area. So,
Yeah. Okay.
all right. So, I have a couple other questions, and then we're gonna go to a short break. But talk about the SWAT training you're doing, and also you had mentioned that you were doing tours at the Navy Museum,
Navy SEAL Museum.
Navy SEAL Museum. I'm sorry, that's pretty amazing, and I bet that's very interesting for you.
It is a really cool place.
Yeah. How'd you get involved with those things?
Well, so I'll start the SWAT. I'm not working any SWAT guys these days, but what happened was some years ago. A buddy of mine, his name was Sergeant Vaglica, Jim Vaglica. He was on what was the Nemlik SWAT team. Nemlik was a regional SWAT team in the Northeast, and he knew me from the magazines. We trained together. I also I'm a competitive shooter. He used to, he and I shot a lot together and all that. So he knew that I was decent at that too. And he wanted to compete. Those guys wanted to compete in SWAT competitions. And a lot of people don't realize, just like sports, they're SWAT competitions where it's only SWAT teams show up to compete against each other. And they had never done it. And so he wanted me to be their trainer and put together a system, a training program to get them ready for this. And so, I put together my knowledge of functional training, shooting, and it was challenging because we had no budget too. I mean, again, anybody can, if you have like a lot of money, you can make anything work, right? It's a whole different animal when you have no money to come up with stuff. So I had these guys go and scrounge the dump for chains and tires and phone poles and all kinds of stuff. And I put together a full system for them to prep them for this competition. And they did really well. They were like 5th or 6th out of 50 teams their first time out. They just blew the doors off of everybody. And somebody from Smith & Wesson saw the videos apparently and liked what I was doing and contacted me, and they asked me to develop 2 courses for them, which were state-approved courses for law enforcement only. One was for regular cops, non-tactical, non-law SWAT, and the other one was for SWAT guys. So I did that. I had a course with Smith & Wesson for a little while, and I was an adjunct trainer for them. And I worked with the Nemlik guys for about 3 years, getting them prepared for their SWAT stuff, and that sort of led to seminars. I mean, I've always known and just been in that community. I mean, even prior to us, so he and I were friends, but I know he's now the chief. He's actually now the commissioner of Boston, Boston chief. But when I knew him, he was a beat cop. His name is Willie Gross, but he's now he's the head guy in Boston. So I've always been in that community. Even my 20s and 30s, my cop buddies were trying to talk me into joining the force and stuff. And again, I couldn't do that job. I have so much respect for police and military. The more I hung out with them, I was like, dude, fellas, I couldn't do it. I have a lot of respect for law enforcement. So I've always focused on supporting law enforcement where I could. I've also been published in various law enforcement magazines, about half a dozen of the different law enforcement magazines on health and wellness and fitness. Do seminars. I've done a bunch of seminars for law enforcement on whether it's just general health of the beat cop or SWAT guy. So I've been like interested or attached to that community in one form or another. And I'm just a history buff. I mean, I come from a long line of World War II veterans and just grew up around a lot of veterans. And so it's just always been interesting to me. I've always been a history buff. And the Navy SEALs were created in Fort Pierce, Florida. This is the home of Navy Special Warfare. It's actually where we trained for Normandy. A lot of people don't know that the Normandy invasions, the whole base to prepare for that landing was in Fort Pierce, Florida, which is gone. It's closed. But when I moved to Florida, I heard about this museum, and I drove up there. It's about an hour away, and I was in there walking around and looking at the stuff, and I started talking to one of the guys who worked there, and he said, you seem to know a lot about this stuff. We really could use another tour guide. If you're interested. And I said, yeah, sure. So I love this kind of stuff. This is sign me up. And
Wow.
so I've just been doing that about 5 years. It's just my day off. Again, it's something that I can give back to the community. And you meet, as I mentioned earlier, I think perspective. What that museum does for me is just keeps things in perspective. Besides it being a very historical place, besides it just being a really interesting place, we get veterans. I might come in there. I'm having a bad day. I'm pissed off because I don't know. They shut off my cable, and you'll get some guy comes through the door who's missing both legs and an arm. And he's in a good mood. And what are you going to? How are you going to feel? How can you possibly going to feel sorry for yourself or not even feel like an idiot? In about 2 minutes flat, it readjusts your perspective about what matters and what doesn't real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm working there, I get to meet World War II veterans who come in, and you can only get so much from a book, And when they come in, I talk to them about what it was like to be on the beaches of Normandy or the beaches of Iwo Jima, being shot at and friends blown up and all that. It puts a perspective in your mind and understanding of things that's you can't reproduce any other way. So the place is important to me personally, for that level as it is for hopefully what I give back to the community.
Wow.
Because we get, like I say, we get World War II vets occasionally who trained on that very beach. They were 16, 17 years old, and they come to the door, and there's not many of them left, and they're older guys. And when they come in, like I say, they get the royal treatment. They get the complete. I want them to come in and leave that place feeling like we didn't forget, that we appreciate everything they did. Because imagine, they're walking around, these kids on phones. Half of them don't even know we fought a goddamn. Oh, sorry, pardon my French. They don't even know that we fought a war. The 100 million people died and 10,000 guys died in one day on a beach and so on. So it's very important to me to make sure that they leave that museum, knowing that people remember.
I love that. I come from Army background with my dad, and my dad was a third generation West Point grad, and my great grandfather, 2-star general, and he ran the show here at Randolph Air Force Base.
Oh,
so we've gone into the Air Force Base there and had the historians take us through a tour of the whole place. And my grandfather's got big photos of him and in the Taj Mahal and some very prime locations because he was living there and running the base there for a while. And he was actually was a helpful part of the Air Force separating from Army.
Mm-hmm. So that was way back.
I know, right? So we've got some Air Force. We've got some Air Force historians that are going out to my dad's house because there's all kinds of cool artifacts from my grandfather and my great grandfather. And so, I have a big respect for military, and they're in my prayers all the time. And totally feel like that's such a quality thing that you're doing there, and especially with the reason for it. But very cool, very cool. So we're going to go on a 2-minute break, Will, and when we come back, we're going to do rapid fire questions right after the break. So you guys don't go anywhere, and we will be right back with the Monica Maria.
Life is beautiful. 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 Life is beautiful.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our 3rd year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
All right, we're back. We're back. Welcome back to the Monica Brandt Show. I'm your host, Monica Brandt, and I'm speaking to Will Brink, consultant, author, and scientist, and a man of many hats.
And no hair.
And no hair, but that's all right. You got all the hats, so that's okay. All right, so are you ready for your rapid fire questions, Will?
All right. Hopefully I don't insult anybody, but
No. All right, so there's 10 questions. They're just random things. You haven't obviously know what I'm going to ask you. So we just try to go as fast as possible. So first one, Will, describe yourself in 3 words at 15. I'm sorry, 25.
Short, funny, arrogant.
Cool. If you could play a sport professionally, which would you choose?
MMA.
Oh, cool. Best and worst thing about bodybuilding.
Healthy lifestyle, incredibly dysfunctional lifestyle.
I love it. Which exotic animal do you most relate to?
Jaguar.
Ooh, I like it. Most important characteristic in a female when you consider dating?
Bank account. IQ.
Okay, understandable. List 3 things that get you up and motivated each day to dive in again.
Coffee. Communication with people I like, and making a difference, whatever difference I can, hoping in the world.
I love it. Relationships, right? Those are so awesome and so important. Favorite type of vehicle, and secondly, do you always wear your seatbelt?
Vehicle that I don't own, but if I could have any vehicle, probably an Aston Martin Vantage, and I always wear my seatbelt.
Last thing you did that was spontaneous.
I rented a jet ski last week. I took the day off from the museum and rented a jet ski for the whole afternoon.
Ah, very cool. Very cool. Is that something that you know how to ride and no big deal? You just hadn't done it in a while?
It was the second time I've ever done it. I fell off once, swam back up to it, but doesn't take a lot of skill. Just
yeah, that's
it's not
fun.
too hard to do, but it's easy to kill yourself on them. I'll say that.
Right. Did you go out and get your vitamin D, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any useless or unknown talents that you have?
Unknown talents. I was a ballet dancer. As a teenager. I danced at the New York School of Ballet for almost 5 years. I was.
You didn't tell us this earlier when I asked you about your childhood.
I don't know. It's just one of those funny things. People say you name something that no one would believe about you. I was a ballet dancer.
How long?
I was 5 days a week that was the top school in the whole world. That and Joffrey, they were right next to each other.
Oh my gosh! How long did you do it? Okay, how long did you do that?
Almost 5 years.
And you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Can you still do anything with it?
I could do your basic plie and stuff but I mean, I could do full splits and everything at the time. I mean, I was pretty athletic, but I enjoyed it a lot. Got me out of the house, kept me out of trouble, and met a lot of girls. I'm not gonna lie. But it checked off all boxes. But what was obvious was I was not going to go on to be a professional, and so I hit that kind of spot where it's like, which direction do you go? And I was like 16, 17, and then I got into the gym, started working out, and the weight thing it was sort of not an odd transition of those two things, but the gym started to become more important to me, and the two don't go together very well. So
girls in the gym.
My instructor started telling me I had too much muscle showing on my upper body and stuff, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be a professional dancer, so I need to move on.
Very cool. All right, last question. Weapon of choice.
1911, 45 cal, 1911. Wilson. Definitely a Wilson.
I take it you're a fan of our Second Amendment.
Of course.
Of course. And you live in Florida, so it's a good place to be.
Yeah, you're either pro liberty or you're not. I don't think there's no in between on that one as far as I'm concerned. It's a whole other interesting conversation we could have someday. Let's
I know, right?
There's have an
so
interesting
many.
two-way show.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so we are really close to our time being up. I gave us an extra 15 minutes because I know we had some issues in the beginning. So, but I want to talk to you about the Alpha Joe coffee.
Yeah.
What's in it? What makes it special? And why coffee instead of, like, why did you come up with a coffee booster as opposed to something else?
So Alpha Joe is called Alpha Joe now, but it's actually about a 10-year-old recipe. Many years ago, there was that very popular recipe that everybody was talking about. You put the butter and the coconut in and all that. I did a review of that, and I didn't negatively review it. I just said it would have its value in here, and a number of people said, "All right, wise guy, what would you put in coffee? I mean, you're so smart." And I said, you know what? That's a fair question because I love coffee. So from the get-go, I'm a coffee guy. I love coffee, and I thought that was actually a pretty fair question. So I said, what makes sense in coffee? What would have specific effects in coffee? What would complement coffee? What am I trying to achieve with putting it in coffee? And so I came up with what I called at the time bomb-proof coffee. That was the term, bomb-proof coffee. And it's a simple recipe. It's creatine, cocoa, and L-tyrosine. And I used it, and other people used it, and I gave it away for free. And people can still find it on the Brink zone and download it for free. And as the years went by, people just were consistently saying, "Well, if you just put this in a can for us, I'd much rather buy it from you and keep it in." It was on my mind. As I said earlier in the show, I really didn't want to do my own thing. I preferred being in the background. But what actually happened was I approached a couple of companies that I know, and they weren't interested. It was more of a food. They didn't know what to do with it. And so I felt like, okay, maybe that's the universe, telling me, maybe that's the universe or higher power or whatever saying, it's do your own thing. So I decided to do my own thing and put it in a can. I renamed it because a lot of people thought there was confusion. So I call it Alpha Joe, and it's those three primary ingredients in the research doses, because again, there's a lot of stuff that has what I like to call, pixie dust amounts or label decoration. They're there for specific reasons as they complement the caffeine. Cocoa has been found to actually work synergistically with coffee. Tyrosine is a really interesting compound that doesn't get enough. And a lot of people to this day are unaware that creatine has nootropic effects, that it is very neuroprotective, that it improves cognition, that it improves mood, and so on and so forth. 2021, it's astounding to me how many people still do not know all the benefits of creatine to the brain and so forth. So I've been, like I say, giving this formula away for about 10 years and put it in a bottle and called it, Alpha Joe. And it would have been out earlier, 2019, 2020. The two things I decided I was going to focus on was bringing Alpha Joe to market and working on my fiction stuff. And, obviously COVID didn't help that too much. So everything kind of got on hold, but I finally was able to what I then contacted people that I knew, like yourself, in the industry, and said, look, I want some beta testers to try it and see what they think, and, give me their honest appraisal and take it from there. I just kind of wanted to see what that was about. And you were the only person to this day, as far as I know, who puts it in tea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. I just never developed a taste for coffee, but I enjoyed it so I have green teas and black teas, and I put it in my black tea. I have a organic black tea that I use, and I liked it. It was good. Yeah,
I mean, as long as it tastes good. I mean, that's there's sort of some basic rules of things that I put in Alpha Joe, sort of as to, like rule number one was, it can't mess up the taste of the coffee. That what seems kind of obvious, right? But I mean, people ask me all the time, how come you don't put X in or what? How come you don't use acetyl L-tyrosine versus tyrosine? I say, have you ever tried acetyl L-tyrosine in coffee? Well, they'll be like, no. Try it sometime. It tastes awful. So I mean, it seems kind of obvious, but I have these sort of rules. Okay, so one, you can't ruin the taste of the coffee. Two, it's got to have, a synergistic purpose to be there. It can't just sort of be these random mishmash of things. They should make sense as to why they're in there. I have some ideas for follow-ups and other stuff, but I'm always getting asked why it doesn't have this or that. And I'm like, try it. If you want to see what it tastes like, but they don't make that connection as to what it's going to taste like in there, or if you can put enough of it in there for it to do you any good and so forth.
So the tyrosine, is that just kind of a mood elevation? Does it help to kind of calm the nerves? I'm not sure. I don't know a whole lot about tyrosine.
It's it would be generally sort of listed as an anti-stress nutrient, but what tyrosine is it's the direct precursor to all of the neurotransmitters that wake you up, epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine, thyroid hormones, all that stuff that kind of keeps you up and alive and awake are all made from L-tyrosine. Okay. And there's been some really interesting studies with L-tyrosine. MIT did, Navy Special Warfare did with Navy SEALs and so forth, when they put people under a lot of pressure. Like, when you've worked all day in front of a computer screen and you're just that brain tired. Well, that's you running out of you get that fog. It's not a physical tired, it's just that. So that L-tyrosine is the precursor to those neurotransmitters that keep you awake and alive. So it's not a stimulant, I don't like stimulants. I don't like anything that takes me into this. I'm already a type AAA personality as it is. I don't need, as you can see, I don't need stimulation. But what's nice, it's basically listed, tyrosine is sort of considered an anti-stress nutrient. It keeps your brain from awake. It keeps those neurotransmitters and those hormones that keep things, pumping along there for the body to grab onto it and make more of it. So it's a precursor to that. Okay. But that's the three of them together definitely have a synergism to them. And it doesn't give you, as you've noticed, you feel kind of clear, sort of a clear, focused feeling. It's not a wound up, jittery type sensation, which I don't really like.
No, because once that comes off and then you crash from that, it's miserable.
Yeah.
All right. So I know Claudia had put the link up here again, but it's alphajoecoffee.com, right?
alphajoecoffee.com.
There we are. And I just ordered mine today. And you said you have a little bit of a delay because it's been ordered out of stock, which is cool for you. But it's a good place to be. But
there is a lot of the industry itself is just, there's a lot of difficulty getting raw materials right now.
Right.
And I thought I had ordered plenty of creatine right now, especially is particularly difficult to get a hold of. And the prices have gone way, way up. So that's the one ingredient that we're on hold, but should be this week or next. So you're on and you ordered first. So first person, it'll go straight to you anyway.
Perfect. Because I know I've been wanting to order it. So last question about that. And I don't remember right now because it was just the sample that I got. Is there a difference in serving size for, say, me at 136 versus, a man at 200 plus?
No, it's the basic doses are the same because none of those should be weight dependent, really.
Okay.
It's not that you couldn't. It's not that let's say somebody was like twice your size, like a really big guy. And if they want to do a double scoop, they won't hurt them, won't do them any harm.
Okay.
But it probably should be. 3 grams of creatine, for example, seems to be enough to saturate tissues for everybody they've studied it with.
Okay.
Somebody wants to double up on it, so none of it would do you any harm. But nobody's at least told me they've doubled up on it yet.
And any reason taking, if you use decaf coffee, is there any benefit to using it twice a day?
If it doesn't bother you as far as keeping you awake or any of that type of thing, it should be fine. It shouldn't. There really aren't any stimulants in it. So I know plenty of people who do take it twice a day, sometimes in the morning and then once before workouts, kind of thing. It's not really a pre-workout in the classic sense. Yeah. But I more or less leave that up to people's tolerance. I personally am just sort of in the morning. I have my big cup and it's a big cup. It's a big old mug of Alpha Joe, which I make one big serving for myself. I also do make it. I don't know if you did or not, but the best way to make it, as I explained to you, is with a little bit of and a little bit of frother, and you get that nice foam on top. So it's sort of like a latte. I think both in taste, but also I think in effect, you might also get improved effect from you are making some of those lipid soluble compounds in what they call an emulsion. So there's probably an improved absorption of some of the stuff in the cocoa is not very soluble, which is why you'll tend to find it on the bottom of your mug. So there between both the taste and there may also be a little improvement in absorption.
It's awesome. Well, I like it. So, and once I get mine, I'll have to do some new social media spots with it and make sure I show it, especially with my tea. So we have just literally got to wrap up here. I know we've had some talk about your books. Can you just tell people where they can find them, excuse me. I know obviously your website, but where can people find your books?
Amazon, I mean, good old Amazon. Just run Will Brink on Amazon. I do write fiction. I also have popular fiction series, thriller and science fiction. So that's sort of been my focus this last year. I've been writing it for a while, but I decided it was kind of a hobby. And this last year I decided I was going to focus on it as actually like a primary thing. And I had a book company contact me about doing a possible book deal and printing and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I've both fiction and nonfiction, but just Will Brink at Amazon will usually get there. And of course, Brink's on for other stuff.
Very good. Well, your website is a wealth of knowledge and appreciate all that you've got there. I'm going to go back and dive in some of your articles and kind of catch up on some things that you've written, and appreciate that because it's nice to have, especially when it's where it's come from. It's quality, and
thank you. I appreciate that,
Thank you for
Monica.
doing all that. Last question for you before I'm going to let you go is, what do you do right now to stay fit and love life?
I mix it up these days: weights, walk the dogs, ride my bike, swim, yoga. Everything I can do just to again get as much outdoor time as I can. Again, I think if COVID taught me anything, it's really a favor and enjoy the outdoors. Mm-hmm. And vodka margaritas on Friday nights, and a good movie. I'm also big in audiophile. I'm big on audio, so that's another thing. You'll usually often find me Friday night or Thursday night just enjoying the good tunes and maybe a margarita and hang out with my dogs, honestly.
Very good. All right. Well, we thank you so much for joining the Monica Brandt Show and being my special guest tonight and sharing all of your information. I hope people will go and check out all your stuff and get your books and get your Alpha Joe coffee booster. Thank you so much, Will.
All right. See ya.
All right, you guys, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for joining the Monica Brandt Show. Be sure and check out my new website, Monica Brandt. It's finally launched again. I'm really excited about it. You guys can go and see all the things there. Thank you to my sponsors, Legendary Foods, Tasty Pastries, Aloe Life, and I love their products. They're so clean. They've got internal and external products. And Egg White International, of course, gets some liquid gold protein that is 100% bioavailable. Also, Bodyscape Magazine, where I'm an associate editor, Picture Groove. My friend Sarah Lyons, who is a great photographer, and we work together on Bodyscape. And of course, now with my new Invisalign, trying to line out my teeth that have been chipping a little bit over the years because of my bite. So thank you to Stone Oak Orthodontics here in San Antonio, Texas. All right, you guys. Be sure and tune in next week. I have another awesome guest to share all the good things with. So looking forward to seeing you guys. Have a blessed night, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Life is beautiful, 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 life is beautiful.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching the Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.